what ways did Trump's intervention expose structural vulnerabilities in Canada's electoral system?
I think that the electoral system itself is actually proven to be resilient and adaptable in this situation. The British style Westminster system means that government can call an election, or if it lacks a majority in parliament, then the opposition could bring down a government and force an election. But it's not stuck in the same regular cycle as elections in the United States, which means that, for instance, Mark Carney was able to capitalize on the opportunity presented by this drastic shift in public opinion, this feeling of urgency, and the vulnerability of Lucky Pierre to his association with Donald Trump in this time where Trumpism is extraordinarily unpopular in Canada. And if you're unlucky, Pierre, then it might feel quite galling because you had the prime ministership was yours to lose. You had the opportunity to be the leader of the country. It was all but said and done. And now, because ultimately the election cycle is in the hands of the incumbent, you are in a losing position. You're forced to adapt over a very short period of time to a schedule that's thrust upon you. And it looks like fortunes have turned 180 degrees. And instead of a solid conservative majority for Pierre and his party, we're looking at a unprecedented fourth liberal government.
Aminia? Oh,
Oh.
Aminia? Sorry.
Are you calling on me because my name's Amina?
That's what I said it. You just didn't hear it because I said it.
Well, I think a lot is happening. And I think we do need to understand that the elections that come and go, election cycles come and go. And Canada, similarly to America, the election process is not fully democratic. And what that means is it doesn't really represent the popular vote.
Mhm.
And I think just like taking time to like absorb what's been going on as a union organizer. And I want to just say that as a union organizer, a large part of our work through unionizing workplaces is establishing a democratic vote, right? And with all the systemic and structural barriers that come with living in a corporate state like Canada and the US, there's just an inability for workers to actually have their voice heard and have their vote be honored. And while union elections are, are suppressed by corporate lobbyists, by employers. Similarly, we can see that in federal elections, provincial elections, and general electoralism in Canada. And I think both in all three parties, which we will talk about today, regardless of what the outcome is, we have to understand that millions of people will not be voting. And there's many reasons for that. And and I think that whether the US, whether Trump has weighed in on it, I think that's one aspect of it. And it's interesting to point out, he did kind of endorse the Liberal Party. He said that he doesn't want to work with Polyev. I'm going to say his name differently. No, he doesn't really want to work with Polyev. And I think that makes sense as well. I think that Polyev is more of a wild card where we have in this country had 10 years of a liberal government. And I think that strategically it would make sense actually to work with the devil that you know than the devil that you don't know.
You think Trump cares about devils? That's interesting. I mean, seriously, do you think he cares? I mean, that's saying a lot. Where you think he'd rather work with a liberal government other than someone that literally backs what he has to say because it seems that all he wants to work with is sycophants. And the liberal government has pushed back.
Why did he say what he said? And that's been sitting with me as well. I'm like having these thoughts, like, is he saying this so Polyev wins? I don't know. I've been thinking about it, and my only thought was, we know what the liberal government record has been economically. We know that they will have diplomacy with the United States. I think that he would be able to work with them. I don't think he wants to admit that openly, but he basically said, I don't like Polyev.
Mm-hmm. I that wasn't my interpretation. Having spent a lot of time in Washington and having to work with all kinds of inside the Beltway MAGA people, I would take his statement that he prefers to work with a liberal as a kind of trolling. Trump too, this election cycle, he is dedicated to overturning the apple cart, to sowing chaos, to smashing apart the system, doing things, doing radically new things, and owning the libs all day long. So having a liberal in Canada makes them a better villain for his particular form of right-wing kayfabe inside the United States. Canada is useful to him not as a partner, but as a punching bag. As, oh, it's such a nasty country, they do such terrible things to us. Everyone thinks the Canadians are so sweet, but they're actually really terrible. The tariffs on dairy, all of this kind of stuff. Having somebody pliant in power like Poilievre might make it too easy, might make it too hard to cast the Canadians as villains, because you have a simping yes man, and it's difficult to paint him as this hardcore globalist that that beating up gets you points with your own base.